All right. Yes, me with the story. And anyway, so I pull up on the bike and I pull up to this barn, and now I remember what I had been told not to go in there, but I go in there anyway. And when I go in there, I realize this isn't even a damn barn. This that was a whole front, like like the studios or something, like Universal Studios or something. Like it was a whole like facade. So people that are driving by, they just assume that it's a park that no one really goes to, that has a big shed, like a barn size, not even a barn size, like it's huge. And then I realized why it's so huge, because it was built to look like there was a big building there, or like some big warehouse size type shed, but really it was nothing. It's just the front, just the A frame and the front part of a building. But when you walk through, when you go through the doors, you walk maybe about, I say about 30 feet, and you're in the woods. And you may think that it's like, okay, it's built like something's freaky going on. So you might be thinking that all this is growing inside. Because at first, when you think about it, it's just like, okay, you're thinking, okay, yeah, this is all woods. Because when I walked through, I was like, oh yeah, like wow, how they grow trees this tall inside a building and this and that. Not, no, it was never. That's never a building. It was just the front. So I'm going back and I'm thinking about that, because I'm like, whoa. But as I'm walking through, what it appears to be is you just walking through, and it's just like this big forest, this big, uh, almost like the Pacific Science Center, where they have all those bionic dinosaurs and all that stuff, and it just looks like a big old forest inside of a huge building. And that's not what it was. It was still the actual forest, but when you're on the outside looking in, that's what it looks like. It's just like that. And that was a smart, clever way to keep people not even thinking about it. Like, oh, you see a park and you usually drive by and whatever, unless you have a plan to go to that park, and it's like specific plans to say, oh, we're gonna go to this park or whatever. But usually people usually pick a popular park or something that like a beach that everyone talks about. Like no one goes to these off-brand, little known areas. It's just like something that's never discussed. And no one talks about it. And on top of that, the parents say, "Hey, don't ever go over there because it's just weird and spooky. Nobody knows. It's just unknown." And when it comes to the unknown, you know how us humans can be. So mind you, in this dream, I'm only like 12 years old, on my way to being 13 or something. And so as I ride my bike through the through the entrance of the door, because there's people that's there, and they're telling me, like, they're greeting me like, "Hey, yeah." So the way it looks, like I said, is I'm just like, this is unique. This is different. And I'm like, huh, I wonder why I was always told not to come here. Like this is fine. Just seems you know different. But I mean, these guys, the people that I'm seeing, I mean, they don't seem like a threat. Okay, so I'm like, whatever. But then I'm kind of thrown off because I'm like, hold up. They told me not to ride my bike to my destination where I was going because I just wanted to check it out and see what it was like and see how far it could go or whatever. Because it just seemed like everything was like nature. And I'm thinking, now, mind you, at the time, because I'm not realizing this front, I'm thinking that all this is inside one huge building. So I'm like, man, how they got running water that looks like natural natural streams and hold up, like wow, that is amazing how they could just do this and make this look so natural. So that's what I'm thinking. Mind you, I'm younger, but like I said, I'm really thinking that I just really walked into a building because of the way the front is set up and the way it looks when you walk through. Like for the first 30 feet, you're just, it's pretty much a wall, but it's built along trees, you know? So it's looking like there's a forest inside the building, but really it's just wood built along a forest. That's all. So, and I'm just walking, I'm walking, and I'm like, oh man. So then they're like, hey, you don't want to take that bike. You don't want to take that bike where you're going because it's going to be very difficult to take that bike. I have to carry that bike, and it's just not going to be. You're not going to be comfortable where you're going taking that bike. You're better off not taking that bike with you. And like, they're like, so then they're like, can you climb with the bike? And I'm like, they say, yeah. Imagine climbing, trying to climb with a bike. And I'm like, all right, cool, whatever. So I go on, I'm like, leave the bike. I'm thinking it's cool. I'm like, all right, these cool, these guys cool, whatever, whatever. So I go along and I'm just like, huh. I'm seeing little foxes. I'm seeing like all these animals, and it's just like nature because I've always been into nature anyway. So I'm like, oh, this is cool. But in the back of my mind, like, hey, mom said not to ever go in there. I'm like, but mom's always saying not to do something. She's always saying, don't do this and no to that. So it's like, nah, man, like tired of hearing all that. Just no, I'm gonna do what I want to do. Like, nah, forget all that. So I go in there. So I see these ladies, you know. Now mind you, I'm young, so I'm seeing like older women, I'm seeing teenage women, I'm seeing women my age at the time, because in this dream, I'm 12 again. Like, so, but this dream, it feels so real. It's just crazy. And how it's sticking to me because it's like, wow. So, anyway, as I keep going, I start seeing more people, but then I start seeing faces that look familiar. And I'm like, hold up. But these people are, they're not, some of these people are not the same age as me. They're, they're the same age I am now, but they're not the age I am in the dream. So these people that would be my age are much older than me. They're like the age that we would be now, but I am the age in the dream. I'm the age I was in '92. So I'm like, so it's just looking funny because I'm like, hey, what's up, right? And it's just weird because I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's happening? But they're looking at me like, oh, look at this little kid. I'm like, kid, like, man, like, but I'm talking like, like, because I'm feeling like in my mind, I'm like thinking like. I'm grown. Like, what is this? So I'm seeing everybody, and I'm like, whoa. And then now, and it's weird because there's some people that would be older than me that's younger, and I'm just like, man, what is this? It was just weird. I'm like, hold up. So I'm like, but I'm just not. I'm not catching on everything. So I'm like, okay, this is. I'm like, this is something different. So I'm starting to now. Now it's starting to get odd to me because I'm like, hold up. Why are people that are supposed to be my age much older than me, and why are the people that are supposed to be older than me just as young as me? You know, so I'm like, hmm, this is strange. So I keep walking, and I'm like, okay, because now it's starting to like be like, what? But at the same time, it strikes my curiosity to keep going to the back, and so I just keep going, because I'm thinking like there's an end to this. There's like a back way to this, which there really wasn't. It just appeared to be that way. And so I'm just like, okay, because I'm seeing like some fire down at a distance, some smoke. Like it looks like there's some activity going on in the distance. So I'm like, okay. So I go down and I walk down and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I'm hearing some chanting and some singing and some ooh, like some type of like I don't know. I really can't say like didn't really sound like native, but didn't really sound didn't really sound Asian, but it wasn't African either. It was kind of like like a like a song, but it was like people just chanting like this old happy sound, like but it's almost like confusing because it's like what are you what is this worshiping? Who are they exalting? Who are they acknowledging? What are they worshiping? So I'm just like going along with it. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I go back there and I see it's looking like a sunset. Looks like the sunset and the horizon behind this throne. So I keep walking towards this area where there's this campfire, where there's this looks like a campfire. There's smoke, there's fire, there's this big throne. And so I finally am like 20 feet, yeah, about 20, 30 feet away from this so-called destination. So I get back there and I'm like, hey, I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, who are you here for? And I'm like, who am I here for? So they say, who are you here for? Who sent you? I said, nobody sent me. Oh, actually, I was told not to even come up in here, but I came up in here anyway because I wanted to see what it was like. So they're like, well, why did you? Why did you come in here if you were told not to? Say because, and then they're like, you're the rebellious one. And so they know. They're like, yeah, we know. And they're like, most of this community has been told not to come in here by their parents, and they chose to come here anyway. And now they're here. I'm like, why? What? They can't go back? What? Their parents won't take them back or something? I say, well, some chose to just stay here and let their parents worry, or some of them just aren't allowed to leave. Why? What do you mean? And so they said, well, some just we just won't let them go back because they're too much of an asset to us. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, oh, so it's one of those again. So I'm like, oh, okay, so not, but mind you, I'm thinking like an older person, but my the physical is like a 12-year-old boy, you know. So I'm like, but but in my mind, I'm like older, like a grown man. So I'm talking like a grown man, but it's coming out of a little boy's mouth, you know. So I'm like, so you mean to tell me that what is this? And they're like, what do you want it to be? So I'm like, it doesn't matter what I want it to be. What is this? What is your purpose? What is your cause? What did you how did you start this and what made you want to start this? So it all came back to rebellion and people not listening and people not listening and taking heed to the things that they've been told, even though they feel like, look, man, I'm tired of this being told what to do business all the time. I'm gonna have to try my own way. So it was like everybody taking their own path and people taking their path, and then there's certain paths that you cannot come back from. So after enough talking and hearing these stories and all that, and then some people were, they were like, I've been begging to leave and he won't let me go and this and that and all these. It's just like a lot of, and I'm just like, what? Like, nah, man, let's get up out of here. So then I'm about to leave, but then they try to tell me, oh, okay, well, if you leave, we'll kill you. And I said, okay. I said, well, I'm willing to die. Hey, when I came here, I knew that there was a possibility I could die because I was already told not to come in here. So you could have been a boogie monster, could have been a serial killer, or anybody. So who's going to stop me? Because I'm going to keep going and I'm going to fight whoever tries to stop me. And so they're like, okay, so I start walking and somebody comes up from behind me and somehow I'm able to hit him with a boom kick in the stomach, boom, kick back and hit the other one in the chest. And then I don't know. It's weird to mind you, this is a dream, so I don't know. Anyway, boom, I start mashing. And then as I'm running, they're like, I hear from a distance, you still need your bike? And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, fuck that bike. But I don't answer. I don't say anything because my mind is telling me, don't say nothing. So I'm running, and there's some people who are running, but then they tell some people, hey, don't like stop chasing them. So I get to another area where I'm thinking I'm going back towards the entrance door where the exit is, but this is a whole nother location. I get in there, they're like, yeah, you're the safety now. And I'm like, hold up, where am I? I ended up running to some whole other area and some like swampy, like muddy, thick mud. And I'm like, what? So they're like, yeah, you got to follow the stones, the stepping stones. And I'm like, so I have to follow these stones to get. I'm like, okay. So now my feet are all muddy. I'm like, oh man, this is whoa. So they're like, yeah, you got to step on these stones. But now, mind you, it's pretty dark. But it's weird because it's like the moonlight is is like shining on these stones, where like everything else is dark, but for some reason the stones have a slight shine to them, where you can see and you can step on them and you can follow the path and get through the mud without getting stuck. So it's like, okay, so we're gonna follow these stones, like walk this path. Okay, cool. So we get through and we finally get to this. like it looks like almost like a stairwell, like walking up, but it's locked. And so we're way up because we just kept going and kept going. So we're finally get up because there's some people who was following behind me because they wanted to get up out of there too. There was so much commotion going on that they didn't realize that they had lost some people in that crazy community back there in the other on the other side. So there's some supporters. So we're going up there, but we look to the side and there's a lit area, and they say in order in order to get out of here and get to the land, you have to come back down here and come around and then go out another way. And we're like, oh my God. So we're like, okay, man, go down, we go around back to where this other person is that says they have the light. So they have this torch type thing in their hand. So we go over there and we got out of there. We get to that person that has the torch in their hand and we start making a move, start pushing through. But then we end up in this other area. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, man, this is what what is this? There's like different dimensions and different areas and different communities. So I hear this lady, she's talking, and she's talking to a bunch of children, and they want to go on this field trip, and those children don't know that they're like in the woods and there's a way out. They really think that they're inside a building. They really think that they're inside a building, but they just have to get around because that front that I was talking about in the beginning, that front, I mean, it's big, it's wide. So it's like designed where you can walk in and it's not a building, but it's very difficult to get out because it's wide. It goes far. So it looks like one huge building, but it's just hard to get out because every time when you think you've gotten far out, when you think you have gotten far enough to get out, you you haven't gone far enough. So and then it's so far 30 feet plus as far as the sides, sometimes you don't know which part is the front and which part is the side. So the thing is you have to go way back to where it stops. Now, mind you, I had peeped this, so I was able to figure it out. But before I was able to actually get out of there, I went I went to that other community where that lady was talking to the students or whatever, or the children of the community, and she said, "Who wants to go look at space?" And space. So now us normally we look up at the stars, and that's just looking up at the stars. But she said, "Who wants to go visit space?" Yeah, she wants to go. They want to go look at space and visit space. So they're like, me, me. All the little kids are like, me. I want to go. So they're all going. And mind you, physically, I look like a child, but mentally, like inside, I'm an adult. So I go along with them, and she doesn't really question me because she thinks that I'm okay. I'm fitting in with them, and she doesn't question anyone else really because she's just in her own world until we finally get to the because we're following them to seeing where they're going to go because I'm thinking, well, maybe they can get out. So We follow them, but as we're following them, we're trying to figure out a way. Okay, is this the route to getting out, or what's going on? Are they going to go outside, or getting out of this building, or what? So we follow. We get close, but we're looking around, and we're not looking like the other children because the other children are like in a single file. They're they're doing their thing, looking like the students that this lady knows. While we're trying to figure something out and to figure out an escape route, and the lady notices it, so she says, "Who are you? Who are you guys? I know that you don't belong here because of your behavior." And we're like, "What? You know, hold on, what's going on?" And so we didn't know that she knew the difference, but she knows the difference because of the behavior. Because all the other children were just like zombies, like zombied out. Everywhere she would move, their eyes would turn, their eyes would move, their head would move. Like they were like possessed or something. It was weird. Well, we didn't notice it right away because we were just in such a frantic to get up out of there. And so she questions us, and we just say, we just want to see space. We just want to see the stars. And so, and mind you, you couldn't see because the trees were so concentrated and all the leaves up there, you couldn't even see the sky. It was thick. It was just like weird. So I believe that's why it got dark so quick because of the concentration of the trees. So we uh we go along with them. So they're going this other way, which is up the stairs, but they're going up like this ramp, this hill. And as they're exiting, they're going and they're stepping out and they get basically to the front of the building or this that structure. And they're like, oh, space. They've been underground so long that they thought that that was space. And come to find out how that ended up happening, they ended up in that underground cave, living in that underworld because something had happened during the time, some a long time ago, where everyone had to go underground, and it was like a war or something. And that's the reason why, in my mind, I was an adult, but physically a child because I didn't even realize that I had died and was born again. And I was going through all these different phases because of my rebellion. And everything didn't come clear to me until I had stepped out and looked at the stars with the children to realize that there was really nothing there and everything had been gone. Everything was all pretty much just all in my mind. Thoughts and spirits from the beginning of death all the way till waking up to the new light. And that's when my life had flashed before my eyes, and I realized, oh, I didn't even see death when it came. Because, see, sometimes you know when death is coming. You may be sick, you may be, you might come down with cancer, you may come down with some type of illness. And so you know your time is coming. But there's always that split second between your last breath and the afterlife. Because as long as you're taking your breath, as long as you're taking breath into your lungs, you're still alive. But as soon as you that last breath, boom, you're gone. And so, you know, that could be the answer to something that I've been wondering for a while. Like, what about those that don't have a chance to repent or to say, I feel bad or whatever, but they have good intentions and they have a good heart, but you just don't know when you're gonna go. So the only thing is to live right, try to live right, do what you think is right, but at the same time we have to survive. So where do we draw the line? Where's the line drawn? You know, that's what I get out of it, because when it comes to God, we all feel there's always some type of rebellion. You know, we obey God, we listen to God, acknowledge Him, even though we can't see, we don't know. But it's just like our parents, and it seems like God's always saying no. It seems like it's always some type of restriction. So it does get frustrating, and it's man, man, it's always something. Like, seem like you can't win for losing. So that's when some of us get to the point where we're like, man, you know what? I don't care, and we start being rebellious. We don't trust in God as much, and so we we end up taking our own path, and there's no telling where that path could lead us to. Hopefully, someday we can make it out and get back, because after a while you realize, dang, they were right or he was right. But let it be too late to where when we say he was right, because you don't always get second chances. I uh, just wanted to say that because I had the dream, and that dream led to a revelation, and that's the revelation I got out of it. So stay in your own lane. Don't stray from your path. Stick to your guns and stand up for what you believe in.